Okay, thanks everybody for joining. I'm Fabio. I work as a VP of Engineering at Upsource, and today we're going to be looking at how to use and leverage the data from BigQuery with the Upsource feature store. So this is part of a series of webinars that you can find on our website. So if you go in on upsource.ai/events. You can find the complete webinar where I discuss all the different ways you can connect Hopsworks with data warehouses and why you want to do that and what are the benefits of doing that, what kind of additional functionalities you can have by using Hopsworks and connecting it to your data warehouse. So here you can find basically the entire webinar. In this specific settings here, we're going to be focusing specifically on BigQuery, right? So the tutorial going to be running, I'm going to be running it on Upsource.ai, and so you can visit that URL and get an account for free. The platform is open. You can register. You get a bunch of quota that's not limited in time, so you can use it for as long as you want. And you can play around with the Hopsworks and build cool stuff. So let's jump ahead and see how you can connect Hopsworks to BigQuery and get some data and so on. Okay, so the first thing you have to do actually, so you go on Upsource.ai and you get an account. I'm already logged in. This is my project. So I have a bunch of projects that you can use, and that's essentially my project. The first thing we have to do is we have to set up a search connector for BigQuery. So you can go in the search connector page on the left side and click on set up new search connector. And here you can give the name, description, and set up choose BigQuery at the end of the list. Before going through these steps, actually, what you want to do is actually going and generate the authentication keys. And so that's the way Upsource is going to be using. That's the authentication file that Upsource is going to be using to authenticate with your BigQuery database and be able to query the data from there essentially. So the way you can do that, Google has a quite extensive documentation on how to do that. You can use either the console, like the web UI, or you can use the gcloud command line tool to basically create first a service account, and then you can generate for that service account a key file. So you will have to basically be running this command essentially, right? So once you get that up and running, basically get a JSON file that you can use to upload to Upsource. So let me go ahead and show you one connector that has already been configured. So if we look at this one, this is already configured by me. So you get provide the like a name, you can provide a name, you can provide a description, and you have to provide a project, right? So I can jump back into my BigQuery page. So I have opened here my BigQuery account. So I have a project and I have a bunch of data sets, and then I have a bunch of tables. So if I look at this table, what I can see that my dataset name, I click on datasets. This is my project name. This is my dataset name, demo, and this is my table name. Okay, I need these three points to be able to actually register, create a storage account, right? So I'm gonna just put for a moment the parent project name, so the name of the project. I'm gonna use the JSON file that I generated, the key file that was generated in the previous step, right? I can either choose from project, or I can upload a new file from my local laptop. I already uploaded it, as this is already configured, so I can use that. I'm gonna select a BigQuery table as a read method. So here I have to provide again the project name, the dataset name, so demo, and the table, so Sacramento real estate. Once that has been done, I can add additional options if I want to, but essentially it's the dataset. Once I've created this storage connector, I can go ahead and import some data into Upsource, right? So I can go in the feature group section and I can click on the import button on the top right, and then here I have a bunch of options. So the first thing I want to do is to select my BigQuery demo real estate, the real estate search connector. I need to input the table name again. Here you could potentially be selecting a different table name that I have in my dataset on BigQuery. But in this case, you can just do like this, and then I'm going to just call it, let's say, real estate webinar. So I can just demo data for the webinar, and then here I have a bunch of options, right? So I can, I need to provide a primary key. That's mandatory. And then I can provide potentially a partition key. So that gives me the option to partition the data in different directories, making it efficient to read data and so on and so forth. And also I need to provide an event time that's mostly for point in time join. So we have an entire discussion on how do we ensure time correctness when I'm joining features from different feature groups and making sure that I'm not leaking any data. So if I go back to my table that I'm trying to import in BigQuery, I can see that I have a bunch of fields, right? So I can see that I have latitude and longitude maybe as a primary keys. So I'm going to use those as a primary keys and as a composite primary key. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste them. I'm going to just add this one and longitude as well. Okay, so I'm not going to add for the moment any event time. That could be just writing timestamp column or the date type columns essentially. I can select if I want to enable the feature group to be online. So if you look at the webinar, one thing we discussed about is how we can get the data on a low latency key value store that is embedded into Upsource, so that you can serve the same features both for training models, but also for real-time prediction. So I'm going to skip it for a moment. I could potentially just start it by clicking in here. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just enable statistics, and that's pretty much it. So we can actually call import feature group, and that will kick off a job. Then it's going to keep on running. Another cool thing that you can do, BigQuery has a bunch of datasets available that you can actually use. So for instance, if I see here, I imported some data that's publicly available in my BigQuery project. So I can use also that data. So I can click on add data on top left and run Analytics Hub. So here we have a bunch of different data that you can use in Upsource as either as features or as either directly as features or as raw data that you can transform and make additional features. If you want to do that, you have to configure the connector slightly different. So if you go back to storage connector, let me show you one that is configured properly. So if you have the BigQuery, let's say it's this BigQuery public, the difference here is that the project name is not your project name anymore. It's this BigQuery public data. That's a project where Google has all the BigQuery public data sets available in that project. So if you want to import some data from there, from public data sets, that's how you can get it by providing this as a project name. And that's what I did actually. So if I look at one of the feature groups I've already imported, I have imported some weather data, and I have these wind reports. So I have a bunch of features here about the timestamps, and this is what I was referring to before. So timestamp is marked as event time, and I have a bunch of like speed, the location, the county, state, latitude, longitude, and so on and so forth. So these are the different feature groups that I have available. I can look at, for instance, the like a preview of the data, right? So I can look at some snapshot of data. I can look at the statistics as well. So these are automatically computed when I import some data, import dataset. And then I also can look at correlations, for instance. That's also for numeric columns, and I can look at activities, right? So once data is in Upsource, right? There's a couple of things I can do, right? So I can use, for instance, the Python API to actually either create additional features, so create derived features or features based on the data, new features, or I can actually use the data directly as features for my model, right? So that's what I'm going to do here, right? As a quick example, so for instance, I have a Colab notebook up and running, and I can install the Upsource library. And as a first step, so it's going to run here. I'm going to log in from my Colab notebook to my account in Hopsworks. So I'm going to just call the Hopsworks.login method, and then I'm going to retrieve the feature store handle for my project. And then I'm going to retrieve the two different feature groups. So I have a wind reports feature group, and I have a tornado reports feature group. Then I'm going to use the wind reports. I'm going to just see a bunch of data that's like a snapshot of like 10 rows. And what I can also do is actually join these features together. So I can use this pandas-like API that we have in Upsource to be able to join different feature groups. And again, because we set up the event time, we're going to be joining the feature data correctly, like time correctly. And finally, we're going to create what we call a feature view. So essentially, a representation of what the features, of which features your model actually need. And so we're going to just give it a name, a version, and the query itself, right? So this is basically actually going to generate a feature view object that is available here, right? So what you can do here, you can do a bunch of things. One of the things you can do essentially is creating a training data set out of it. So you can go here and click on the UI. You can just give it a description, data. I'm going to use the entire data set. Just going to give the one I want to store. I want to store it into Upsource itself. I'm going to store it as CSV file, and I'm going to skip the splits for the moment. I can potentially set split. So train, say 70%, test, and say 20%, and then we can add validation split, which is like 10%. Okay, so that allows us to split the train data set, and then I'm just going to create this kickoff job that's going to be running in the background for, as you see now we have to basically generate a new train data set essentially. And that's about it. You can try it out by yourself. And again, you can go on app.upsource.ai and try out this tutorial by yourself. Thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.